cabinet meeting going on just down there. One of those men is going to be chairing it. Some of the others are going to want the top job. It's extraordinary.
Well, it's even more bizarre than you suggest there, George. We are going to see these men sitting around the cabinet table, looking at each other, wondering who will run, but wondering something much more fundamental. What job are they actually running for? Are they running to be Prime Minister, or are they running to be Leader of the Opposition? None of that is yet clear. And therefore, Labour's choice of who they want would be completely different. Even more odd is Liberal Democrats tonight thinking, do we go with this proposal to create a coalition government, or don't we? Don't know who it is that they would be going into bed with. We all know as voters it's Gordon Brown temporarily. Who on earth will it be afterwards? We simply don't know. Now, there's no doubt those in the Labour Party who wanted this form of coalition are keenest on David Miliband, the Foreign Secretary. But of course, it won't be the Liberal Democrats who choose, it won't be the voters who choose, it will actually be an electoral college of Labour Party members.
All right, Nick, for the moment, thank you again. Thank you. Well, Gordon Brown has been a resident of Downing Street for some 13 years. First, of course, as Chancellor at number 11, before moving into number 10 in 2007. Being Prime Minister was the job he always wanted. Yet the last 3 years have been the most difficult and embattled of his political career. Gary O'Donoghue looks back at his career.
After 10 years waiting in the wings, Gordon Brown was cheered as he left the Treasury for Downing Street in the summer of 2007, replacing Tony Blair without a contest, promising change and renewed trust in government.
I will try my utmost. This is my promise to all of the people of Britain.
It was the fulfilment of a long-held dream. He brought with him what he called his moral compass, instilled by his father, a church minister. From his early years at Kirkcaldy High School, he was a high achiever with a social conscience. At Edinburgh University, he was heavily involved in student politics. And after his election in 1983, he swiftly rose through the ranks, promoted to the shadow cabinet by Neil Kinnock, along with his friend and rival, Tony Blair. But when John Smith died suddenly in 1994, it was Blair who became Labour leader. At an infamous dinner at this London restaurant, Mr Brown agreed to stand aside, but the details of the deal haunted the New Labour project. Gordon Brown has always been a driven and private politician, but his life changed with marriage to Sarah Macaulay. He's spoken movingly about the death of their first daughter and about his two sons, one of whom has cystic fibrosis. As Chancellor, Mr Brown gave the Bank of England independence and enjoyed initially prolonged growth and low inflation. He wielded control over large areas of domestic policy. But within weeks of becoming Prime Minister, he faced acts of terrorism, foot and mouth, and floods across the country. Encouraged by good poll ratings and colleagues, he toyed with calling a snap election, but he hesitated and eventually called it off.
I'll not be calling an election, and let me explain why. I have a vision for change in Britain.
Rows over political donations and the loss of public data dealt further blows to his authority.
The House has noticed the Prime Minister's remarkable transformation in the last few weeks from Stalin to Mr Bean.
And he had to admit his abolition of the 10p tax rate was a mistake.
We've listened to what people are saying about the effects on different groups, and we've made the changes as a result of that.
And soon his reputation for economic competence was called into question as the credit crunch began to bite. Northern Rock suffered the first run on a major British bank in recent history.
Well, that's it from us for the moment. There'll be more later on in the programme, but on this extraordinary day, let's join Fiona now in the studio.
George, thanks very much. Well, today's other news now, and the developments in Westminster have been watched closely by the city. A massive bailout plan for the euro has eased some of the uncertainty. I'll have more on that in a moment. And today the